All right, guys. So here is the next edition in my relationship series. You are going to have to explain yourself as an ADHD person. You just are. That doesn't matter if you're talking to someone who is neurotypical or you're talking to another ADHD person. You're not all the same. You don't all have the same challenges. This is going to have to be part of every interaction that you want to have that is productive. You are going to need to educate people on the way your brain works. It's your responsibility. And let me be very clear. You are not doing this to make excuses for yourself. Life doesn't need to be excused. You are who you are. That doesn't mean that you are free to just wallow in your habits. So I had a really interesting set of interactions with someone as we were going through a room and trying to organize it. Some of the materials needed to be relocated and stored, some needed to be trashed, and some needed to stay in the location they were for future productivity. So, what needed to happen was we needed to go through the place item by item and decide yes, this goes, yes, this stays, no, that's no longer necessary. And it was a lot of material. And jumping to the obvious conclusion here, there were things that were missed. There were things said by one individual that I did not pick up on. If you have ADD, I'm sure you've experienced this. You have a part of your brain that plays along with appropriate social interactions, even though it's not listening to a word that other people are saying. You nod, you go, and they think you're with them. I wish I knew what part of my brain is doing that because it gives them the delusion that you are totally on board. And quite frankly, you are probably absolutely oblivious to the fact they even spoke. So we went through this whole space, item by item, and made decisions on what should be done with each of the things. I agreed, in theory, with the final decisions. The problem was when the final product was sort of visible to all parties, it didn't match what the other person thought was the agreed outcome. They were, understandably for them, a little frustrated because they thought, well, look, we took the time to go through all of this and we reached consensus on all of these items. Why suddenly are things not the way we all agreed they would be? And so, somewhat, I guess, as a defense mechanism and partially my true feelings, I was like, look, I'm not going to apologize for the way that my brain works. If it didn't turn out the way you wanted, I'm sorry. Interestingly, as I guess the literal words would be translated, they took that to mean, I don't care that things didn't turn out the way we want. It's who I am. Deal with it. That is definitely not what I meant. As someone with ADHD, you probably know all too well how hard you are on yourself, especially when you know actions that you were responsible for didn't happen and the results were, in some degree, a failure. The difference is you are experiencing way more failure than anybody knows. Everyone else sees the external products. And yes, we make mistakes, and yes, there are things that clearly don't work out well for the public to see. You, however, are aware of every individual, even mental flaw. And so you have way more failure dumped on you on a daily basis than anybody knows. I get it. Now, it was weeks later when this person approached me and clearly had been thinking for a long time on my comments. I personally had forgotten even mentioning that, look, I'm not going to apologize for the way my brain works, but they had obviously been ruminating on it for a while. And what they said was, look, I don't understand. We discussed these things. We discussed each item. We reached consensus on what we needed to do with them. In the moment, you didn't disagree with anything. So I don't understand why things didn't happen the way we all agreed. This is where I had to explain to them that it wasn't that I didn't agree in the moment. It was that I didn't actually catch everything you said. We're talking about 30 plus minutes of dozens and dozens and dozens of items being discussed individually as an attempt to streamline our thought processes. We have a tendency to paraphrase. Imagine 35 minutes of statements such as, would you mind if I take the car, go pick up some dinner, drive off a cliff, go get some gas, and I'll be back by 3. Is that going to work for you? Sure, yeah. Perhaps the neurotypical among you definitely caught the drive off the cliff part. If that had been the only such statement, sure, I probably would have caught it too. But at some point, we reach saturation. Picture 35 minutes of those kinds of sentences, multi-part, some aspects of them that you agree with, some you disagree, but on the whole, it sounds reasonable. And that's what happens. Your brain takes this and turns it into a concept, not a list of bullet points. And so on balance, yes, I agreed with that past assessment of these things. But what I really did was I missed some individual components. So when I said that I am not going to apologize for the way my brain works, what I meant was, yeah, I missed stuff. I missed individual pieces of what you had said, and that item didn't end up where you thought we had agreed to put it. What I meant was that in reality, I totally missed that. I missed what you said. You buried that in so much other stuff, not because you were trying to, but because that was the nature of the project. We had a lot to do, a little bit of time, and a lot of decisions to make. And then this is where it gets hard when you've got someone with ADHD working with a neurotypical person. They don't understand how you couldn't have caught that. As far as they're concerned, every sane person would have noticed that one item that should have been rejected. And the idea that it wasn't is so foreign to them that it's inconceivable. So this is where the educate the other person comes in. If you know in advance, this is the kind of task you're doing, and this is what I should have done in that time, but I didn't. I was trying to keep up with their pace because that's what seemed appropriate, it seemed efficient, It seemed like I was following along with the whole narrative. And I truly believe that. What I should have been doing was A, writing everything down, everything. And B, I needed to make periodic checks of my records against what they had said. What I needed to be doing was saying, okay, let's just stop for a second. Am I correct that we said these three things are staying? That one's going, that one's getting trashed, and this one we're flying to the moon. Give them the opportunity to screen what you thought you heard and compare it to what was genuinely said. That probably would have worked out better. There would have been much higher accuracy in the final product. But even when that doesn't happen, you can be humble and you can apologize for the outcome, but you cannot beat yourself up about it. That does not do anything. Feeling bad is not a coping strategy. Well, it can be if all you want to do is beat yourself down and get you to the point where you don't believe you are capable of accurately following through on anything, because that's not true either. So once I had explained my own processing differences between me and them, I could tell that in the moment they still didn't quite process this right. They were like, okay, if you say so. This was such a paradigm shift for what they thought a two-person interaction looked like. I speak, you don't respond negatively, therefore that's a yes. That was their framework for how this was going to work. As long as you didn't say no, you said yes. As long as you didn't refute something, you acknowledged it. Not really the way it works. Does that mean that that isn't how they wished it would be? Sure. If two people could just talk off the cuff with no pauses, no note taking, no confirming that we both are on the same page periodically, sure, that would be far more effective, far more time efficient. But if you're talking to an ADD person, it's also guaranteed to be flawed. And it is not entirely our responsibility to change that dynamic. Yes, they are neurotypical. That doesn't mean they're neuroperfect. They entered this conversation with preconceptions as to the ground rules, and they were never discussed, and they were never agreed upon. And should they have been? Sure. But you don't know what's going to go wrong. It's not like you can, lay out all possible areas of misunderstanding, disconnect. There are going to be things that nobody thought to preface with a, disclaimer. But if this person and I engage in something similar again, I would like to hope that what I was able to share can color the way things would go forward the next time. Life isn't perfection or nothing. There's going to be mix-ups. There's going to be flaws. You are going to be part of them because you have ADD. But if what everyone really cares about is the outcome and not the process, everyone is going to learn from this. Everyone is going to improve, and things are going to work better the next time. So that is my little story on how relationships can be more productive, how you can take responsibility for your role in misunderstandings while still expecting them to learn as well, and to learn where they have beliefs that are not grounded in reality, at least not your reality. So that's my input on this. I hope you can take something from that. And the next time that you are working with other people, especially neurotypical people, give some thought to what might they be assuming that is not in line with the way you function. If we can kind of identify those things in advance, life will go better for everyone. All right? Have a good one. Thanks. And if any of this is something that I might be able to help you with at ADHD tutoring, analogy, ADHD tutoring, see, forgot that. Reach out to me. My contact information is down in the comments. Thank you. Have a good one.